Tonight, Iran has launched a series of retaliatory attacks against Israel, with missiles raining down on Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, injuring at least 16 people. The action comes after Israel defended what it called preemptive strikes on military and nuclear targets in Iran, claiming the Tehran regime posed a danger to its very survival. Israel struck military and nuclear targets in Iran, with local media reporting that at least 78 people had been killed and more than 300 injured. In Washington, President Trump warned Tehran in the strongest possible words to make a nuclear deal and threatened what he called further brutal action if there was no agreement. And tonight, the United Nations Security Council met to discuss the crisis. We'll have more on that in a moment for you, but let's start with the scenes of sirens and missile attacks this evening in Tel Aviv. And our Jerusalem correspondent who's there for us, Alistair Bunkle. What's the situation at the moment? Because we were reporting earlier that there was to be a third strike from Iran.
Well, it has been a very long day here in the Middle East. It has been, with no exaggeration, a monumental day here in the Middle East. It started in the early hours of this morning when millions in Israel were woken to sirens and then the news that Israel was carrying out waves of airstrikes in Iran. Those airstrikes continued throughout the day. People here in Jerusalem and in Israel stayed close to bunkers and to shelters, awaiting the response from Iran. That response came this evening in multiple attacks, hundreds of ballistic missiles fired at central Israel, some of them impacting in Tel Aviv. Iran waited to recover, to regroup, and then this evening it issued its response to the Israeli attacks today. After hours of Israeli attacks on its country, Iran launched a response. More than 100 ballistic missiles were fired at Israel in multiple salvos. As sirens sounded across the country, there were interceptions over Jerusalem and a number of missiles impacted in central Tel Aviv. There were reports some people were lightly wounded and buildings damaged. This attack on a major Israeli civilian center could well trigger an escalation in this war. Israel's operation began shortly after 3 a.m. on Friday morning. Targets in Iran's capital, Tehran, were some of the first to be hit. 200 Israeli aircraft took part in the opening hours, hitting around 100 targets, including leaders of the Revolutionary Guard and nuclear scientists. With Iran's air defences mostly destroyed, they carried out wave after wave of attacks throughout the day. Israel's Prime Minister justified the operation as a fight for his country's very existence.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons.
The key nuclear facility in Natanz, where uranium is enriched, was hit multiple times as Israel tried to penetrate the chambers deep underground. Iran said that civilians, including children, were killed in some of the strikes and vowed to retaliate.
This barbaric act that violated all international commitments confirms the criminal nature of the illegitimate Zionist regime that has based its existence on occupation, aggression, and killing children.
Missile launches in Iran were also targeted. Mid-morning, Iran launched 100 drones towards Israel, but they were all shot down before they reached Israeli airspace. In an extraordinary covert operation, Mossad spies operating deep inside Iran
took out ballistic missile sites from the ground, using their own drones smuggled into the country in preparation.
Israel has warned that the operation could continue for days, possibly weeks. It is a dangerous moment for the Middle East. The region is on edge, but Iran has few allies coming to its defense.
World leaders have urged de-escalation, but Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu see this as an historic opportunity to destroy Iran's nuclear program and, maybe, even the regime itself. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News, in Jerusalem.
Well, Alistair joins us now, as does our US correspondent Mark Stone in Washington. We'll hear more from them in just a moment. But we have heard from Benjamin Netanyahu this evening. Let's take a look at his address.
The Islamic regime, which has oppressed you for nearly 50 years, threatens to destroy my country, the State of Israel. The objective of Israel's military operation is to remove this threat, both the nuclear threat and the ballistic missile threat to Israel. And as we achieve our objectives, we're also clearing the path for you to achieve your objective, which is freedom. Israel's fight is not with you. It's not with you, the brave people of Iran, whom we respect and admire. Our fight is with our common enemy, a murderous regime that both oppresses you and impoverishes you. Brave people of Iran, your light will defeat the darkness. I'm with you. The people of Israel are with you.
Let's return to Alistair live in Jerusalem for us. The address that we've just seen is particularly aimed at the Iranian population.
Well, I think one of the real sort of unspoken factors about what has happened today is the potential to topple the regime in Iran. Now, obviously, Israel is not going to come out and explicitly say that that is its intention. Its justification for carrying out these strikes is to target Iran's nuclear facilities and to either hamper or potentially, if it could do, destroy Iran's ability to produce a nuclear weapon. But in that clip that you heard from Benjamin Netanyahu, he hints potentially at more, speaking about delivering freedom for the people of Iran, saying that he stands by the people of Iran against a murderous regime. And so as we move into the next hours and days, and this is a war that will last, at the very least, a number of days, I think we might see an expansion of Israeli airstrikes to cover different parts of Iran, both geographically, but in terms of the nature of targets that they engage. And actually, I think that the attacks on Israel tonight and the impacts in Tel Aviv, a major urban civilian center, might very likely give Israel the impetus and, in their view at the very least, the justification to widen their attacks against Iran tomorrow and in the days ahead.
Yes, Netanyahu did say that he was clearing a path for the Iranian people to achieve your freedom. He said that he respected them, but that they had been done a disservice by the regime, very much appealing to them to topple the regime from within.
Very much so. Whether or not they will result in the toppling of the supreme leader in the regime, we'll have to wait and see. Whether or not that is an objective they will try and achieve themselves by targeting the supreme leader, again, we will have to wait and see. There isn't any precedent for this. That said, the events of today did remind me in some respects as to what Israel did to Hezbollah, striking at the senior officials initially around Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, really sort of decapitating the command structure, sending Hezbollah, and in this case today, sending the Iranian leadership into complete disarray, and then with Hezbollah eventually targeting the leader itself, Hassan Nasrallah. So we'll see whether or not Israel does decide to hit the supreme leader, Khamenei, or whether or not it does limit its strikes to military targets and nuclear targets. But I really think that that speech from Benjamin Netanyahu was pretty explicit in the way Israel sees this. It's not just an opportunity for Israel to try and push Iran's nuclear program back significantly. It is also an opportunity to really degrade Iran's military capabilities, and as I say, potentially an opportunity for them to bring about regime change in Iran.
Alistair, for the moment, thank you. Well, tonight the UN Security Council has been meeting to discuss this latest escalation in a region in turmoil and focus too on what Donald Trump will do in response to the crisis. Our US correspondent Mark Stone is in Washington, D.C. for us. We've not long ago heard from the Israeli representative and also the Iranian representative, who was very clear about saying that the United States was complicit in this attack.
Yes, and he also gave us the first official word on how many people the Iranians believe died and were injured as a consequence of the Israeli attack. He said 78 people, including senior military officials, were killed in the strikes and that more than 320 people were injured. He claimed most of them were civilians. And as you said, the Iranian UN envoy also accused the United States of, as he put it, providing intelligence political support for the Israeli strikes. For me, Gillian, there are two striking things to reflect on, I guess, at the end of this extraordinary day. The first is the audacity and the apparent success of the Israeli strike. Israel did overnight last night something that successive Israeli governments have wanted to do for over 3 decades. And in one strike, or one night of strikes, they managed to decapitate so many parts of the Iranian government, whether it was taking out nuclear scientists, taking out nuclear facilities, taking out the ballistic missiles, or many of them, that would form the counterattack that they knew would come, and taking out so many senior officials of the Iranian government in the Iranian military echelons as well. You know, all the people in Iran who would have met this morning under normal circumstances to ascertain how they would react to what Israel had done are dead. That is how successful, from an Israeli perspective, the attack has been. The other observation is America's response, or lack of. And what I mean by that is the fact that we haven't seen Donald Trump today, a man who loves to be front and center, who loves to own a moment, who loves to seize the opportunity to be seen to take control. He released a lengthy statement this morning on social media, on Truth Social, where he appeared to be playing the good cop to Netanyahu's bad cop, effectively saying, look, Iran, we told you, we tried to get you a deal, we tried to talk to you around the negotiating table, you didn't want to do it, now look what's happened. That was the essence of his statement on social media, but we haven't seen him. We know that he met his National Security Council this morning in the Situation Room. We don't know what was discussed, and no word at all this afternoon from the American president. He's trying to thread a very tricky needle right now. He is a president that likes to portray himself as a peacemaker. He wanted to create peace in the Middle East. It really does not feel tonight like that peace in the Middle East is anywhere close.
Indeed. Mark, thank you. Well, the Prime Minister has spoken to Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu to discuss today's events. Earlier this evening, before the Iranian strikes against Israel, we heard this from the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy.
I spoke to my Iranian counterpart today to urge restraint at this time and calm. I recognise that this is a moment of grave peril in the Middle East. All of us recognise Israel's right to protect citizens at this time and its security. We have long been concerned about Iran's nuclear ambitions, and as you know, the United Kingdom has been working alongside France and Germany for a considerable time to deal with those issues diplomatically.
Let's go now to our political correspondent Nick Martin in Downing Street. And Nick, a busy night of diplomacy for the Prime Minister. We heard the Foreign Secretary there speaking, and he did go on to say in that interview that the UK wasn't involved in the strike. But what he didn't say is whether they were made aware beforehand.
The Prime Minister has spent today talking to Western leaders in an attempt to send a message to both Israel and Iran that might have prevented some of the scenes that we're seeing unfolding across Israel tonight, and potentially any future escalations in the days and weeks to come. The message from the UK government has been this, that whilst they have been concerned about Iran's nuclear programme for many years now, on the other hand, Israel, they say, has the right to defend itself. However, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has also said now is the time to talk and to calm things down. Diplomacy and de-escalation, in his words. He spoke a few hours ago now to Donald Trump. Both men, we're told, agreed that diplomacy and dialogue was necessary. At about 5 o'clock, he spoke to Benjamin Netanyahu. And earlier in the day, the Prime Minister had spoken to the French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. He also chaired a meeting of COBRA, the emergency committee, where senior ministers and senior military figures met to try and discuss the situation. But what's clear as the day's gone on is just how much in the dark the UK government appeared to be about this whole operation. David Lammy said just in that interview there that Israel was acting unilaterally, that they had no part to play. So much so that David Lammy was meant to be on a plane this morning to Washington, D.C. to meet one of his counterparts, and at the last minute when all this started to unfold was turned around to try and assist the Foreign Office operation. This is now a gravely serious situation. The Prime Minister is positioning himself with other Western leaders in trying to calm things down. But as we see in Israel tonight, that is far from happening. The Prime Minister due to travel to Canada for G7. He'll meet Donald Trump, and this unfolding situation is sure to be very high on the agenda.
Nick, thank you very much. Just want to bring you some breaking news, and this is regarding casualties in Israel. We're just hearing that 34 people have been injured in a rocket strike on the Gush Dan, in the Gush Dan area. This is very close to Tel Aviv. The people injured include one woman who's been critically injured, one man seriously injured, and 2 moderately injured, and 30 lightly injured. The woman's around 60 years old, in a critical condition in Beilinson Hospital, and the man who's about 65 years old is in a serious condition at Sheba Medical Centre. The woman in a moderate condition is 50, and a man in his 50s is in a moderate condition in Ichilov Hospital. 30 individuals with light injuries have been evacuated to Ishilov, Sheba and Beilinson hospitals. Additionally, 13 people have been suffering from anxiety, and they were evacuated from the scene. So that's the very latest that we have on casualties in Israel tonight. Let's get some more details now of what's happened today. The Israeli military said Iran fired fewer than 100 missiles, most of which were either intercepted or fell short of their target. A number of missiles did breach Israel's Iron Dome, injuring people on the ground and causing damage in Tel Aviv. There are now reports of dozens of injuries across the country.
It's one of the serious hits we've seen recently. Probably, as you know, in the last 2 years, we have many incidents of missile and rockets from all kinds of different areas, from the Hezbollah in Lebanon, from Gaza, and now from Iran. And we are here to help them to search and rescue all the trapped people inside, all the innocent civilians, and take them to a safer shelter, to rescue places, to hotels, everywhere we can take them. And of course, treat all the injured and help all the helpless people.
Well, just 6 months ago, Iran's foreign minister told Sky News that Israel would be crazy to attack its nuclear sites. A lot has changed since then, including a nuclear deal proposed by Washington and a new assessment of how close Iran is to making nuclear bombs. Our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, has this assessment.
So Israel has finally attacked Iran's nuclear program. It was a massive, sophisticated military operation involving at least 200 fighter jets and thousands of personnel. It's thought to have taken years to plan. The primary target's Iran's nuclear enrichment sites and its ballistic missile program. Blasts were first reported at around 3:30 in the morning in Tehran. Israel's biggest ever operation against Iran was underway. Natanz, a remote location in the desert, which is at the heart of Iran's nuclear program, was among those hit. The global atomic watchdog, the IAEA, says no signs of radiation have yet been detected. Before they did any of this, the Israelis were trying to assassinate the entire top brass of Iran's military and intelligence agencies, most of them in their homes in the dead of night. At least 20 senior commanders are reported dead, from Iran's highest-ranking military officer to the commander-in-chief of Iran's Revolutionary Guards and many others in between. The intention to destabilise Iran's entire command and control elite. So what happens next? Well, Israel says there could be days of this. Iran is, it seems, still weighing its response. It could launch another huge drone and missile barrage against Israel, as it did in October. US intelligence estimates that Iran has more than 3,000 ballistic missiles and has been increasing production. And it has thousands of these Shahad drones, some of which they've already launched against Israel. Exactly how many they have is not clear, but they're much cheaper to produce and often harder to detect. The Iranians could activate their proxies in the region. The Houthis in Yemen, Shia militia groups in Iraq, and a much depleted Hezbollah in Lebanon. And Iran's always warned it could strike back at US bases in the Middle East, highlighted here in places like Qatar, Kuwait and Iraq. The Americans say they weren't involved in the attack, but Iran will not believe them. The Iranians may try and destabilise the oil market by attacking tankers and installations in the Gulf. A fifth of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz, around 20 million barrels a day. One of the busiest and most important strategic waterways in the world, would then become a war zone. Donald Trump says Iran could still make a deal and save itself from more Israeli attacks. But so far, the tone from Tehran has been one of defiance.
Just want to bring you some breaking news now, and it's the details of the King's birthday honours which have just been released. There's confirmation that former England football captain David Beckham has been knighted as part of the honours for his services to sport and charity, having partnered with UNICEF for an anti-malaria campaign. Actor Gary Oldman, who played Harry Potter's godfather in several of the movie's franchises, has been recognised for his services to drama. West End performer Elaine Page, who became an overnight star with her performance as Ava Peron in Andrew Lloyd Webber's hit Evita, has received a damehood. Included too, The Who's frontman Sir Roger Daltrey for services to charity and music after launching and curating the Teenage Cancer Trust's Royal Albert Hall concerts for the past 25 years. And teenage darts champion Luke Littler has been made an MBE for opening up the sport to a new generation following his explosive debut on the sport's professional circuit. Congratulations to all of them. That was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by Daily Mirror columnist Susie Boniface and former Conservative Special Advisor Anita Boateng. Amongst the stories, we'll be discussing this on the front of the Mirror. Its headline, "We will strike back harder." We'll be right back with that story and others. Do stay with us.